हम मानते हैं कि दुनिया को बेहतर बनाने के लिए जरूरी है एक सोच। एक सोच कि दुनिया बेहतरी के रंगों से निखर सकती है। एक सोच कि अच्छाई के रंग हम सब पर खिलते हैं। एक सोच कि ये रंग जब फैलेंगे तो खुद में खुशियां समेट लाएंगे। और इन्हीं बदलाव के रंगों को हम आपसे शेयर करते हैं। उस सोच के साथ जो जाती है हैप्पी रेनबो बॉक्स में।
Swami Vivekanand Subharti University, one of the leading universities of North India, 250 acres campus, 220 plus professional and vocational programs, 20,000 plus students. Give wings to your career with Swami Vivekanand Subharti University, Meerut, Delhi, NCR.
I'm fascinated to hear that there is AI being implemented in agriculture. We are looking at predictability of crops. I think that's just, if it pans out the way we want it to, or the way we hope, it can totally change the way, it can change our country's profile. If you think about it, the potential is huge. But let's come down to the brass tacks, right? So COVID has, of course, thrown up great opportunities, and it's also, while it's been devastating on one end, but it's also made us introspect. It's also made us, look at how we've done things, how better we can do things, right? So, like we were just discussing, that even when we're talking about going digital, we're talking about Wi-Fi access in railway stations and platforms and buses and so on and so forth. The fact is that it's very difficult to even make a basic phone call so many times, even in the capital of the country, Delhi, I'm talking about, right? Mumbai, I'm sure, is no better. Haryana, Gurgaon, you go, the constant call drops. So these are very basic infrastructural challenges. So what has been your experience in working with these challenges? And how do we overcome them? What are the solutions? Where do we go from here? Let me pose this question to Mr. Mishra first. Like, how did you, try and overcome the connectivity challenge? And what does the future look like from here on?
Yeah, I think part of the answer, Srinivas sir, have already given you. I will just detail it a little more. You remember 25 years back when Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited launched internet in India, 1995. So when we used to have a modem where when you connect, you'll hear a buzz,
Yes.
2 minutes, and then you will get connected.
I am part of that generation.
No matter what,
yeah,
whatever connectivity we have at whichever point of time, we will have service level issues. So those are smaller things. Those will have to be solved on a daily basis. But do we have the basic infra, first of all, for all? Currently, no. But the game changer is what Srinivas sir just told you before, the BharatNet, which is being undertaken countrywide. And in that, few states, we are doing a state-led model. Funds are being spent from the Universal Service Obligation Fund. There's a fund called USOF, from which Government of India grants funds, so that it ensures that certain amount of service, certain amount of internet, telephone connectivity is available everywhere. And in that, we are a state which has 13 of the 30 districts are in high terrain, mountainous, tribal areas. So it's not easy to reach out in terms of telephone towers. And in fact, 4 districts have less than 40% penetration of 2G mobile phone. So we have these problems. But once the BharatNet gets commissioned, which I think about between March to June, it will get concluded almost everywhere. We will have a broadband of 100 Mbps connectivity at each Gram Panchayat. And this is happening now. So this is not something in the pipeline. This is happening now. And Honorable PM has already started talking in terms of having broadband at each village. So that's the next leap of faith that we need to make. And from Gram Panchayat to each village, we have to provide that, and we have to take it as a matter of mandate. Like we say that we have to provide the basic requirements like food at a subsidized price. we have to ensure that we provide connectivity as well as data free or subsidized to each and every one. So that it has to be equated to that of food, road, water, and internet. So internet for
Right.
all is going to happen, and that is where the BharatNet is going to be a game changer. And taking it forward further, we will have village level. Each individual should have have internet access. That's government's side, that this is, we are mandated to give that.
Sure.
Plus, the challenge further to it would be how people will access it. Just because there is internet available, let's say in Delhi, doesn't mean everybody in Delhi has an internet broadband. So how do we provide that, whether that access point, whether it is a tab, a phone, or whatever we can we provide that free of cost to all citizens? These are things which needs to be really thought deep into, and I think Niti Aayog is doing a lot of study on this along with all states. We are also involved. So going forward, I think this is the area in which things will be discussed, how broadband is available to each individual in this country.
Let me ask Gopal here, Mr. Mohan, you have thought of giving citizens the option of making a call. If they don't have the internet connection, you can make a call and access the services, right? But with COVID, we know that there will be a new way of life now. And how are you planning to, like we've been talking about BharatNet. The fact is that BharatNet is working much behind its deadlines, right? The deadlines that were initially announced, we are way behind that. There are genuine logistical challenges on ground to implement and get things going. So how are you planning to work with those limitations?
As we all know, Delhi already started 11,000 Wi-Fi hotspots, which has a range of 150 meters radius of every hotspot. So we have already covered 27% of Delhi and 56% of the residential Delhi. So you can easily get broadband on your Wi-Fi. Or our plan is to take broadband to each and every home. And as sir has told that providing Wi-Fi or broadband is not only the way, we have to think for if they don't have the equipment to run that, and if they don't know how to do that, so it's of no use. So what we are planning to do, we are planning to buy tablets or systems for everyone, government school students or the citizens who don't have the equipments at their places. So we are planning to provide some community equipments at community level, and we've already started planning to provide 50 lakh households they will connect to the broadband very soon. And already Delhi has the maximum number of internet users, the ratio of maximum internet users, because Delhi is like a bit city kind of state. It's not like we have very less rural things, and the things are very easily reachable to all the citizens. So we are very soon we can say we are providing broadband to 100% of Delhiites and to 100% of the houses. So yes.
See, we are speaking maybe less than a month after that tragic case of a very bright girl in LSR who ended her life because she couldn't access her online classes, right? Like there was no tablet or a smartphone for her to access her classes. So that's the real reality on ground. Nandini, let me come to you. In terms of the real on ground challenges, right, to make digital happen, what's been your assessment? You worked with states to implement a lot of initiatives. What are the real challenges that India has to overcome?
So Shweta, as Manoj sir pointed out, and as Gopal sir also pointed out, so sir, both of them talked about there was a broadband connectivity till rural area. So one more thing which throws up here is not only rural versus urban. Second thing which throws up is the economically backward, the poorest of poor, the poor people versus rich, right? And now COVID does not distinguish between rich and poor, right? There's a connectivity and the third which is thrown up, which we are seeing is the age. The senior citizens have resistance to adopt to the technology, but they have to be the part of the whole game of this virtual new norm which is going to happen. So the challenges are majorly connectivity, and then probably the accessibility and the application and the cloud and the platform and integration will come later on. So broadband is relatively expensive affair. it is not very affordable. There is this barrier is a very big barrier. Then we lack digital skills. As I told you about adults, there is a low level. Then third thing, which is very important, there's a limited trust on net. You have to take care of that as well. And finally, physical gap in the rural areas and the areas which are so that physical network gaps have to be filled in.
Let me pose this question to Mr. Srinivas and Mr. Umashankar, right? Would governments consider, a more, maybe a refined version of the PPP model to make digital accessibility for all a reality? Mr. Umashankar, let me pose this question to you first. What are the policy, the interventions at the policy level that a Haryana government might be thinking and contemplating about that could enable more people to come on board to ensure that digital actually becomes a way of life?
Let me, I think from the question that you have asked, just take a step back before I reach that question. Haryana has BharatNet. I mean, in the sense, BharatNet in Haryana got commissioned way back in 2017. And we have fairly decent connectivity, Gurgaon aside, we have decent connectivity across the state. The problem is more on account of and based upon the IT interventions that have been carried out in the past is the fear of the digital world amongst those who find it difficult to understand it. You might carry a phone in your hand, you might carry a tab in your hand, but to navigate a web application and to input in all the data in the proper perspective and then receive the service, it's a little difficult. I mean, the way to reach out, to understand, to make people comfortable with this is a separate activity in itself. That's why we believe that along with people self-accessing services, the concept of assisted services, I mean, it began with the concept of the CSC in the past, but some CSCs are dysfunctional. So we got into the exercise of creating our own assisted service structure. So we sign on what we call as local operators, roughly one every 250 households. And we pay them for every service that the operator as an assisted service provides. So while the service may actually be without a physical touch point, in order to reach such people, you provide a physical touch point in terms of an assisted service. This has, we have created our own structure, state structure for it, and we run it as part of our state structure. Insofar as, your question on PPP is concerned, I think the value of the PP, as you mentioned, is in the way you unpack it and take it to the last person. So a local operator in that sense is PPP.
Sure.
But here, any student, any youth who's comfortable with the digital world is able to invest in a laptop and is able to get connectivity, becomes your front end for providing the service. All he needs to do is come and register on the portal. We do a verification exercise and he gets a login and a password. Then he becomes the assistance point. So we are working at service delivery in this kind of a PPP mechanism where it is not a large company PPP, but it is actually a disaggregated PPP. The second is on the issue of infrastructure. Infrastructure, certainly with the jump in digital usage that is happening, whatever infrastructure you create today is going to be running beyond capacity within 6 months. That's the kind of growth we are seeing in the digital world. So how do we keep pace with that? The BharatNet and UrbanNet have been spoken about as two infrastructure standpoints which can provide this kind of a facility where you can constantly keep scaling. But that is only and only if you have control over the infrastructure. We have tried a PPP model in Gurugram for UrbanNet. I mean, what we call as a citywide net, and it has proved to be fairly successful. It's a kind of a shared infrastructure concept where the companies which come to lay the fiber on the ground, this is dark fiber essentially, also lay a duct with a 96 core fiber which get used by government. So insofar as government services are concerned, and I think Gurgaon is again probably the only city in the country right now which has a city-wide fiber on a PPP basis, part owned by government and part owned by the private sector. And that's where the scaling up of infrastructure in Gurgaon has also been possible. This model we have not been able to replicate in some of the other cities because there is a level of investment and also an opportunity for business that the PPP partner looks at, which may not be same across the state and certainly not in the rural area. So we will need different models for different places insofar as PPP is concerned.
Okay, Mr. Srinivas, let me pose this question to you, and after that we'll do concluding remarks. When it comes to the private sector participation in making digital a reality and in really integrating digital and making it happen, what are the interventions that you're thinking about?
I'm not really concerned so much about the hardware part or infrastructure part, because if you see internet penetration, the hardware penetration or mobile penetration, for instance, it's quite high in India, right?
Yeah, right.
I have some other thing to contribute here, to comment upon for the others to react. Number one is actually now that Mr. Mishra, Mr. Manoj Kumar also pointed out, BharatNet is going to come up. It has been delayed, as you said, of course, but as you rightly pointed out, in between April and June, it's going to be completed. But are we ready for post-completion? The point is the backbone is ready, but is there blood and plasma to flow through it? That is the point. Tomorrow it should not happen because BharatNet 1 has been completed, but actually the lines are dead because they were never used. The point is immediately we should come out, this government, the responsible government, we should come out with applications which will be using this BharatNet. And especially in Maharashtra, as I said just some time back, 3 sectors we have identified as priority sectors for agriculture, where we are going to implement Maha Agritech project, big time, including IoT, etc., for farmers on a daily basis. In fact, we are going to give a weather advisories every 3-4 days during the Kharif and Rabi season, for example. I don't want to go into further deep into the examples. That can be a separate topic and separate time. Second is the health sector, telemedicine. So whenever I discuss with health department, they always say we don't have enough beds. So why are you talking about telemedicine? In fact, my answer was always that is the reason why we should go for telemedicine, because we will never be able to compete and point out where doctor will be there in a village. It's not possible. So we should go for telemedicine big time. In fact, COVID has really pointed out the necessity of that. And third is education. So these are the 3 sectors. Applications have to be rolled out very quickly. I'm talking about the software applications have to be rolled out very quickly by governments. In fact, if Government of India come out with an omnibus application, that will be fantastic idea. But otherwise, state government, we are going to do that. That's very important. Secondly, PPP project you are talking about. 2 points quickly made. Maharashtra, has, in fact, was a pioneer in UrbanNet. We are taking a connectivity from a private operator, so selected through a reverse process, and where the connectivity will be, services will be provided with 1 rupee per year. That is the PPP model that we are implementing actually. But more important, I think, is as far as the Northerner, the ex-Northerner BharatNet is concerned, the monetization of the net, especially what Mr. Umashankar has rightly pointed out, the dark fiber, that becomes very, very crucial.
Very quickly, I'll just ask each one of you to pick one digital governance trend that you see picking up in 2021. Let me start with Mr. Mohan.
Trend for this is online meetings and online treatment, that telemedicine thing, and most of the students are using online medium to go for education. So all these things are very important, because in offices we are physically going somewhere and coming in government offices, we don't have that culture of this online meetings and all. So now the culture has developed, and because the infrastructure for medical facilities, like in the situation of pandemics like COVID and all. So we can like we have already introduced our apps and go for telemedicine things, and we are also coming with the HIMS, which is the future of all the hospitals and all the clinics and everything, so that we can keep every patient details in our cloud, so that we can like give him the best treatment in future also, and we can provide him all the information about our health system, where he want to go, when he can go without taking appointment. He need not to go. He can see anything before even visiting hospital, and most of the things he'll know it before going. So this we are planning to.
Okay, Mr. Mishra.
The biggest thing that is going to happen in the next couple of years, not only in 2021, will be the concept of the social registry. Now, we have massive data in terms of scheme-wise. We have generated citizen-centric data. We have generated. Now, instead of citizens chasing government for their services, we might make it very, very easy for them to get it through e-govs, online and other means. But there will be large section of people who will never get it. Therefore, instead of citizens chasing government for services, government should chase citizens to provide those services. How will that happen? That will happen only when you have the golden data set, when you have the universal data of your entire population who deserves and merits whichever service. Then government should be able to push those services into them without they having to apply. One small example I'll just give you, that we have started in schools at standard 7th, 8th only. We are creating the caste certificate of children and putting it on the DigiLocker for each of the students. So they don't have to, when they come to 10th and beyond, to search for their caste certificate. They don't have to go to the Tahsildar office.
Mr. Umashankar, your big mantra?
Quickly, I mean, partially agreeing with Mr. Mishra, what I would call as Parivar Pehchan Patra, or which is the scheme which is being undertaken in Haryana, proactive delivery of services.
Mr. Srinivas, your mantra for digital governance?
One is from home, and
Hello.
second is what has rightly pointed out, that for having a golden data interoperability. These are the two things that are going to be the future key to success everywhere.
Nandini, you get the final word.
Yeah, so just to add, for me, I think now what I can see is that health and education will be premium to getting into connectivity. It will be virtual. So one line is internet is no luxury now. It's, in fact, it's like digital access is like oxygen. So, and digital access to be seen as just as utility, electricity and plumbing. So we were getting government to G2C services like your water payment bills and electricity and reaching out to farmers and to citizens. But now they have to reach out through just like my previous panelist said, health, education, will be the they will have to work on health and education to reach out to each and every person there on net.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I have personally learned a lot. It's been a very enlightening conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohan, Mr. Mishra, Mr. Umashankar, Mr. Srinivas, and of course, Ms. Singh. We do hope that post-COVID, after the year that has been 2021, brings us all the positivity in all areas of life, which includes, of course, digital governance. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
We have a special message from Mr. Hemant Kanoria, Chairman, Strafe Infrastructure Finance Limited. Let's listen in.
It is a privilege and a pleasure to be associated with the India Today State of State Awards. As Shrey, we have been engaged with India Today on this award ceremony for the last so many years now. And it is truly a privilege to be in a position to interact with the chief ministers and all the award winners. It is a trend which India Today has set up so well of acknowledging the states in the various fields and how well they have performed. And it is always nice to see that how the states are competing with each other to win awards in the various areas which have been identified. So I think that this is something which we are very proud about of being associated with India today on this award ceremony. I see that at present in the last 10 months, the entire world and especially India also, we have had a transformation in the way that we have been living our lives and business. Initially with the scare in March, what started off with the pandemic, with COVID-19, people did not know that what is going to happen. We went in for lockdowns everywhere in the country, which caused a lot of dislocation to both life and the livelihoods of people. It also brought in a scare in the minds of the people that, you know, who would get affected and who may be living or who may be dying. And that is where people were so uncertain about things. Over a period of time, we have seen that, you know, the government, the states, they have central government, the states, the healthcare systems, they all work together to find out solutions and to attend to this pandemic. This pandemic is still not over. It is going on. And I think that with this vaccination coming in the next few months, we should be having some solution to it. But I think it is something which is living with us now for a long time and will live with us for a much longer time that we expect it to. So in the last few months, we have all reoriented the way that we live our lives. And people were never used to be working from homes. Most of the companies, and wherever it is possible, they have introduced the work from home policies or work from anywhere. And because of the technology platform which has been developed so well over the last so many decades, we have not had disruptions to the extent that we had imagined in the work or in our lives. Definitely when we have to live indoors, it is not because as human beings, we are all social animals. So we need to meet people, we need to interact with people, we need to network with people. But unfortunately, because of this pandemic, it has all initially for the first 2-3 months, because of the scare which was there and because of taking more precautions for the health, everyone were at home, working out of home. So therefore, it has basically brought in a new orientation to the way that we live, the way that we basically do our businesses. And then gradually, as the things have started opening up, we have seen that the migrant workers, they came back to their states, and many of them, they are not even interested in getting back. So I think that, whatever happens, it happens for the good. I'm not saying that COVID is for the good, but COVID has helped us to reorient and the way that we live, to change our lifestyle also. I find personally that, with many of our friends and relatives, people used to also splurge a lot. So now, because of the COVID, people have become more careful and they have become more inward looking. People have started looking at their health and focusing on that to see that how they improve their immune system, because medicines may not be in a position to help everyone. So it is the immune system of the self itself which can help in battling with the COVID. So this is one great thing that, everyone is looking at the health. But from the perspective of what the government can do in the states, because many of the people have come back to their state and they will not be going back. So it also provides an opportunity for the state governments to look at the skill set of the people who have come back and see that what kind of industries or infrastructure investments can be made by the states in conjunction with the private entrepreneurs, private companies, and also along with the central government. So that's an opportunity. The resources which are available in each of the states, the state governments can focus on those resources and optimize. So let's suppose some state may be very good in maybe having the natural resources. So the state governments can work on and see that how they develop those natural resources, whether it be the mining resources which are there, whether it may be agriculture. So agriculture also in different states would have different propensities because of the soil conditions there, the weather conditions there. So I think that it will require the state governments to focus more on the livelihoods, industries, agriculture, infrastructure, healthcare. So I always believe that India is almost like a continent. So, and each state, because they are self-sufficient, so they have to maximize and optimize the resources which are available in that particular state instead of trying to copy or ape. That if let us suppose that Maharashtra has large number of industries in some sector, which may not be appropriate for a state like Sikkim or Assam or West Bengal. So they should look inwards and see that what are the resources which can be utilized and exploited in the best possible manner. So I think that this is the time to look inwards for everyone. And what the Prime Minister has also said, Atmanirbhar. So we have to become Atmanirbhar from ourselves first as individuals, then from the perspective of the businesses or the livelihood that we have. Similarly, the state governments also have to become Atmanirbhar from the perspective of both their finances, and the resources which are available, because manpower is also a very big resource. And if it can be channelized and utilized well with the natural resources which are available, then I think that it would bring in a lot of prosperity to both the state and in general to our country. And that is where I would like to request all the state governments to look at their resources, use the industrialists or the business people who are in their states, facilitate them, and see that how the optimization in each of the areas can take place. I wish the award ceremony all the best, like all years, and I'm sure that this success will augur well for the states for the future also. Thank you.
हम मानते हैं कि दुनिया को बेहतर बनाने के लिए जरूरी है एक सोच कि दुनिया बेहतरी के रंगों से निखर सकती है। एक सोच कि अच्छाई के रंग हम सब पर खिलते हैं। एक सोच कि ये रंग जब फैलेंगे तो खुद में खुशियां समेट लाएंगे। और इन्हीं बदलाव के रंगों को हम आपसे शेयर करते हैं। उस सोच के साथ जो जाती है हैप्पी रेनबो बॉक्स में।